Jeff, you're going to sleep outside again this week, again. And we've got Dan Esposito on the line from the NFL Alumni Association, who is also going to be sleeping out. So we've got the NFL Alumni Association team. Dan Esposito, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing awesome. How you guys doing?
We're doing great, other than the fact that Jeff looked at the weather forecast before the show and realized it's going to be about 20 degrees when you guys sleep out on Thursday. Though
That's
it
the
it
best way to do it.
there should not be precipitation like the one year that Jeff did it, where his cardboard box disintegrated and
Right.
his shoe split. So, can
Yep.
you talk a little bit about the NFL Alumni Association involvement with Covenant House, why this is important? Then we'll let Jeff talk with you about what you guys are actually doing.
Sure, sure. So the NFL alumni's mission statement is caring for our own and caring for kids. So obviously kids, Covenant House caters to kids, up through their very early 20s. So these are children who may be experiencing a rough time at home. Maybe mom got a new boyfriend that doesn't like the 16-year-old boy, and they throw him out on the street. Maybe there's no electricity in the home, or water, or just abusive situations, etc. So I was, obviously played a little bit in the NFL, and I was on the board of the NFL alumni, and I met with a friend of mine, and he was telling me about the sleep out that he was doing. And leading up to this point, I had always wondered about what happened to older kids in the foster care system. I was always kind of thinking, hey, I should adopt a kid at some point. And then I start going through the ages of what age would be appropriate. And then I got to 17. I said, gosh, what happens to a kid at 18 years old if they're in the foster care system? And the harsh reality is they're just shown the door, right? And so a lot of these kids are still in high school. They have no means, nowhere to go afterwards, no relatives that can take them on in a lot of situations, no established friends because of the movement in their lives. And I thought, well, if I can't adopt, this would be a very great next option for me, and to tie it in with the NFL alumni because of the mission of the NFL alumni. So about, I think it was 3 years ago, I did my first sleep out. And Jeff joined, which was awesome. And unfortunately, COVID hit this year, and it has made just fundraising in general very difficult. So, donations are down tremendously this year. So if any of your listeners want to either help with donations or even sharing the link to our Sleep Out fundraising page on their social media to maybe try to hope, raise a few more dollars for this great cause, because these are kids in our neighborhoods that once given this opportunity to stay at Covenant House, which is basically like a college dorm situation. It's not a shelter where they come and go. They stay there. They're given the resources to succeed. They get job opportunities. They take jobs, and at some point they're then moved out into their own apartment, where they pay rent on a monthly basis. And then once they can move out into their own apartment that's not tied to the Covenant House, Covenant House gives them back all their rent money that they had paid and gives them a nice little nest egg to move on. So a lot of these kids have done some really amazing things. They've become assistant executive chefs. Some kids have, gone on to college, while previously they were homeless for half of their senior year. So they really give the right tools to kids in our local communities so they can succeed in life and be a positive force in our communities rather than a negative force.
It's when Jeff did it, we talked about what the experience was like. What's it like for you when you stay out? The whole idea is that you're supposed to get a little taste of what it is like,
Yeah,
that someone
yeah.
experiences.
The
So what's
problem,
that like for you?
yeah, yeah. So the problem with doing it this way is where you were going to go sleep out for a night is that it's rough, except that you don't get to experience the anxiety of not knowing where your place is in the world, not knowing where you're going to sleep or eat, right? it's a tough moment in our lives, but it's only a singular moment. And the reality of it is last year when I went to go sleep and I got back into my box, it literally felt like the next day, right from the year previous. But it was kind of in a weird way comforting to be able to just go into that box and think about what's just kind of your life and how lucky you've been, but you don't truly get to experience the full 360 emotional impact that having no home could be. And interestingly enough, I ran away for a day once when I was in, maybe I think it was middle school. And so I kind of understand that piece, but I always knew that I went home later that night. And so you understand that to a degree when that happens to you, but it's almost honestly, it's an experience that it toughens you up a little bit, but you really don't experience what a homeless kid is going to be able to go through.
I'm gonna let Jeff talk. Jeff, why don't you talk for a couple seconds? Then we'll do our read for as we go online more. Then we'll come back and we'll finish it.
Yeah, I've had the fortune to do this with Dan. Dan came into our show and talked me into do it. It's the most rewarding thing I've probably ever done. But to couple with what Dan said, um, we got to go home and take a shower after. And it was a nor'easter, and it was the worst night of the year to be out. But we got to go home and eat and take a shower. And all I kept thinking when I left there was, these kids then have to find some place the next night. They have to find a bridge to sleep under. They have to make sure that somebody's not going to steal from them or hurt them the next night. And the cause is so important in the work that the NFL Alumni Association and the Covenant House does, is so important. And the fact that Dan's another example of another former athlete who's giving back to the community and how he's using his platform for positive change.
Jeff, I want to go back to you guys to talk more about what this means. You were saying you can't go home and you can go home and get a shower, you can go home and get a hot meal. Not everybody can.
No, I mean that's the whole point of this. I remember, Dan, I don't know if people texted you, but I remember when we did it the night of the nor'easter, that people kept texting me and emailing me during the day saying, there's a nor'easter tonight, or are they going to reschedule it for another night? And my
Right.
response to every one of them was, well, what would be the point? They don't get to decide when they sleep outside.
Right.
What was it like for you to do that, Dan?
So for me, it almost felt like a duty, right? I can't really explain in words unless you experience it, because you really don't know what you're in for when you go to do it. But when you sit there in that homeless moment, and once again, you're surrounded by like-minded, charitable people in that situation. You're not surrounded by potentially other homeless people that might be having mental health issues and drug issues and things like that. So there's a sense of duty that comes with it, that here's this one night where I'm going to raise some money to provide hopefully a way out for one kid. But I mean, I got to be honest with you, it almost felt like camping physically, but emotionally there was so much more tied to it, if that makes any sense. I don't know if you felt the same way, Jeff.
No, I did, and we did have the fortune of meeting some of these amazing kids that have gone
Yeah.
through the Covenant House and come out the other side, and kids that were in the beginning of that journey, and also just as important, meeting the people that are there, that do the work day to day, from providing meals and someplace to sleep, but also education training and job training.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
this isn't a situation where these kids just come in, sleep, and eat. These kids are,
Yeah.
during the day, are supposed to leave, and they're supposed to go to school, and they're supposed to find jobs, and then they pay it forward. And so
Yeah.
one of the things that has always struck me about you and many of the former athletes that we talk to is how you use that platform. How important is it for you, and how important do you think it is for other athletes to use the platform that they have to do the kind of things that you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, the NFL Alumni is involved in a lot of children's charities, and I think that you'll find in a lot of cases, a lot of athletes, former athletes, may have grown up in similar situations to the charities that were supporting, other, like Big Brothers and, a lot of foster care charities, et cetera. I know, I don't have to make it personal, but personally, I kind of grew up in an abusive family relationship, and that, I was fortunate enough that I didn't have to leave the home, except for that one instant where I ran away. But, when I sit there and apply what could have been to my own life with just maybe one more bad situation, I could have been truly homeless or, God knows whatever else. And so once you place yourself in these kids' situations and know that my situation was no fault of my own and that their situation is no fault of their own, and in a lot of cases, it may not even truly be the parents' fault, because a lot of these parents might be dealing with mental health issues that they don't have access to any help for. So there's just so much to it, and you really put a lot of deep thought into it, and what the kids must be going through. And there's yeah, I mean, I don't know if that answers your question completely, but you just really feel empathy toward these children. And I think, like I said, a lot of former athletes grew up poor and in tough situations. So it really gives us an outlet to, one, because we're former NFL players, to bring a little bit bigger spotlight on it. And that's what my goal is. Listen, I wasn't a Hall of Fame player. I barely played 2 seasons. I had 4 contracts and 2 broken jaws and shoulder surgeries. But I am able to leverage the NFL alumni platform to give the Covenant House a little bit more of a spotlight. So that's, for me, it is gratifying.
Well, we're going to make sure we put the Covenant House information out on our social accounts so that people can follow. Jeff's got his fundraiser up there. Jeff, I believe you're already over $5,000 in donations.
Oh,
Gotta
my
keep
Lord.
your goal there.
Wow.
Yeah, Jeff's
awesome.
working it, Dan. You gotta keep up with him. He's working it hard. He even hit me up, and he knows that I'm cheap. So,
right.
I did want to get, we have somebody with NFL experience, unlike Jeff and myself, on the phone here. Let's talk a little Eagles Giants real fast. Giants, the Eagles come in at 3-4-1, look to get to 500. You have had some opinions about the Eagles quarterback. I will openly admit I have been a Wentz backer. I have my Wentz wagon t-shirt. I certainly have concerns about his decision making, and I'm puzzled by some things. Can you tell me your opinions about Carson Wentz and what made you suggest that the Eagles may need to move on to Jalen Hurts?
Yeah. So what I see with Carson Wentz is somebody who's extremely gifted physically. But as I watch him play the position of quarterback in the NFL, there's a lot of deficiencies. If you look at his, well, let's just first kind of rule out a little bit of the fact that it's the offensive line's fault. There is definitely some ownership the offensive line has to take, but I believe that right now they are leading the league in average yards per carry. Is that correct? I don't know if you guys have that stat.
Assuming they hand off the ball. The problem is they don't hand it off sometimes, and then
right.
goes off.
That's because Carson Wentz likes to get us in really bad field positions, right? 3rd and long, 4th, 2nd and long, et cetera. And what I see from him is he has a safety net in Zach Ertz, right? It's the only place I see him actually audible to. I don't ever see him audible to, and it's usually audibling to him between the numbers, right? It's not out routes or quick outs or a quick out by a slot receiver, anything like that. It's audible. The ball's almost always going to Zach Ertz. The problem with Zach Ertz as your only safety net and as being a tight end is he's got amazing hands, but what I call spaghetti legs, right? He's never running far after the catch, right? He's not like the other tight ends that we see in the league that are doing really well, like the tight ends in San Francisco and Kansas City. So you're limited in the playmaking ability if you're leaning on that guy so much. But if he sees offensive lineman that might need some help or might need, he may need to get rid of the ball quick. You you just don't see him calling an audible to a hot read receiver. And that to me makes or breaks a quarterback in the NFL is your ability to audible, not your ability to take two plays that the coach gives you and choose which the best one of those two plays are. It's your ability to see the field completely, to understand the matchups, and then to put your players in a position to make a play. And then let's talk about the wide receivers, right? We say the wide receivers aren't that great. Well, we had the top wide receiver free agent come in here a few years ago, and all of a sudden he's no longer productive. You see Nelson Aguilar leave, and all of a sudden he becomes pretty productive, right? So we see these, signs that maybe it isn't the receivers. And the one thing that I wish you would see Carson Wentz do a little bit more is let the receivers make a play. All right, your receiver's covered, but everybody's covered in the NFL, right? You need to let them be wide NFL receivers and make plays. And if they don't make the plays, then that's on them. And so what I kind of see is Donovan McNabb 2.0, but rather than throwing the ball at everyone's feet, he's kind of overthrowing, a lot of plays. And how often do we see him throw the ball downfield to stretch the field in a designed play that's not a broken play? And that's almost never. So I am completely not sold on this guy. I feel that he's regressed or barely moved forward, if at all, since his rookie year.
We've got 3 minutes left. I've said a few times to Jeff, I don't think anything's been the same since Frank Reich left. Now, granted, Carson is coming off an injury after that, but it doesn't seem like there's anybody there that's getting through to Carson. He just keeps saying, I got to change this. I got to stop making the same plays. If Carson is not audibling like you're talking about, how much is it on the head coach and the coaching staff to not call a 5 or 7 step drop when your line is a problem and call a rollout instead if you know he's not audibling?
Well, you have to play football, right? You can't be one dimensional. You gotta, your players have to make plays, but then if they become out of position, it's the quarterback's job to recognize that, right? And say, oh, there's a blitz on. I better get out of this 5-yard drop or 5-step drop. Or, there's a blitz on and it's 3rd and 15 and I'm going to audible to my tight end again who can't run after the catch. So that's where the problems, I think, lie. That's where the majority of the problems lie in my, when I see, what's going on. It's you're 3rd and 10. You got a blitz coming on. You need to isolate a receiver and let him make a play. Or,
Okay,
yeah.
Yeah. So Dan, we got 90 seconds left. So the question is,
Yep.
if you've been in the backfield, you're in
Yeah.
these guys are in the middle of a playoff push, sadly as it is with their record. When do you, as a player, how do you move on from Carson Wentz, who's got experience, and move on to Jalen Hurts in that situation?
I mean, what are we, 3-5? What's our record again?
3-4-1. Don't forget the tie.
Yeah, 3.
Yeah, don't forget the tie.
Yeah, I mean that's a loss, really. Was that that tie, to a really terrible team? So how do you move on? Just sort of in general, this is sort of a cut bait year anyway, right? So, I don't think there's any better time to do it now. And the division is so terrible that how bad could Jalen Hurts? If Jalen Hurts plays as well as Carson Wentz did in his rookie year, we'll be fine. And I think Jalen Hurts has more tools and a better feel for a football field.
All right, Dan's ready to hit the eject button. Jeff, we've got 30 seconds left. I'm going to give you your last word. Jeff, Dan, predictions in the last 20 seconds. Eagles, Giants, who wins this weekend?
I think the Giants are actually going to win. The Giants have been pretty close in recent games.
Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, I still think the Eagles pull this out based on their defense, and I don't think. I mean, I like the potential of Daniel Jones, but I don't think he's there just yet. But the guy does have a good quarterback instinct. But I think the Eagles are still going to win this game.
I think the Eagles win, but it's going to be ugly because of the Giants defense.
Yeah,
That's